So I just have to jump in and give some affirmation here on Violin Unlocked Week with Music Rebels and say, I want you to sit with this idea. What if the reason violin has always felt harder than it should be isn't because you're not good enough, because you don't have talent. It isn't because you're not practicing hard enough, or it isn't because you don't know enough scales, or it isn't even your technique. What if the reason is that the method you studied, learned, or that you are following currently was never designed for you in the first place? Let's be honest, most violin methods are crafted for children. You've probably been handed something that's built for kids. It's got drills, it's got scales, it's repetition, it's got things that are focused on the type of automatic memory a developing brain needs. And that stuff is great for young players. But if you're an adult over 30 and you're practicing from this method, you can kind of start feeling like you're in this rudimentary prison going over and over these exercises. Meanwhile, your hand's getting tired, your neck is feeling tight, and your sound isn't necessarily getting better. That can be so frustrating. And if you started when you were young, your teacher said, practice more. You got to practice more. You got to practice 7 days a week. You got to practice 5 days a week, whatever the case may be. You got to practice an hour a day. Depends on how old you are, right? When I was younger, it was like an hour a day was like the minimum. And nowadays, we're lucky if our violin students are practicing 20 minutes if they're kiddos. And so that in and of itself is a huge differentiating factor for you as an adult. You have the attention span, you have the desire, you have the body awareness, you have the coordination, and there are so many assets that you have that you can use if you're not using an outdated or a misguided methodology. If we haven't met, I'm EP Archer, and I help committed adults improve their quality of life with music. And if you've ever walked away from a violin lesson feeling worse than when you walked in, or spent years practicing and still felt stuck, this one is for you. I don't ever want you to feel like you're failing, like it's too late, like you're not good enough, you're not talented. None of those things are true. Being an adult and studying an instrument gives you an advantage. In fact, many advantages. And as long as you're willing to open up a little bit, be vulnerable, and see ideas a little bit different way than when you were a kid, and a little bit different way than maybe some of your counterparts who are strumming along on the guitar or doing something different than you, you are going to have an amazing experience. And this can actually be transformative and life-changing beyond just learning to play an instrument. Because let's be honest, the reason we want to play an instrument, the reason you are drawn to the violin is not just to replicate notes. It's not just to play a certain music or to make sure that you can achieve Mozart. There is a feeling when that wood is touching your body, when the resonance is happening, the tone quality, and when you're able to feel through an instrument and get all the amazing brain benefits and get the boost in confidence and rewire your neural system, that is something that you just can't replicate any other way. Are there other things that add benefits to your lives? Absolutely. Exercise, conversations, being out in nature, but music and playing an instrument specifically, and one as challenging as the violin for sure, is something that opens you up to a wealth of benefits that go beyond this beautiful connection and this feeling and this sound that we are desiring. So you probably heard this growing up, practice makes perfect, or maybe you've heard the better version of it. Practice makes permanent. So if you're practicing repetitive ideas or repetitions that are geared towards growing minds and growing bodies, not towards someone 30 plus, then what you're practicing is tension, and you get better at tension. What we need is getting better at opening, at making muscle memory automatic, about loosening and relaxing to the point that we almost feel as if our limbs are suspended by a thread. Adults have an advantage. You have focus, emotional depth, you have context, you have discipline. And when we're a kid, we don't have these things unless we're really, really molded and really, really forcing ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean as an adult you can't play, because playing with technique and playing with sound and opening up is one of the most fun things that you can do. And to be able to return to that eager part of yourself is amazing, and I want 100% for that to be a part of the journey for you. The revolutionary artists like Miles Davis refused the traditional in-the-box standard and created something that worked for their sound. Coltrane even learned 400 pages of scales, or 400 different scales, from Nicholas Slonimsky's encyclopedia of scales, but then he used those to break the rules and to create something new. And so these adult musicians are paving the way and using the method as a launching pad, not as a prison. Music is communication first. It is feeling, and it is somatically oriented in the body. And that's why we do somatic resonance for violin players. That's why we have a system to unlock the violin, and we call it Violin Unlocked. We don't want to stick you in a box. We don't want to have you just struggling like we did when we were a kid, playing that same Wolfhard etude over and over, or trying to memorize your scales and playing them in patterns as you slur all the way up the violin. Of course, we're going to do a scale or a pattern, but we're going to open it up in a way that feels alive, with iterations that are going to be so useful for everything you play, so that you can not feel like a mismatch anymore, so that you can stop feeling like you're too old, stop feeling like maybe you waited too long. You didn't. This is the perfect time. And there has never been the advent of music education the way that it is now as a norm. We've never been able to get together across multiple states and countries like we can now. And we've never needed the emotional and powerful expressive quality of music how we need it now. So for you to be a revolutionary artist, for you to follow the path of those musicians in history, they didn't throw out the rules. They understood them so well that they could break them and iterate them and reinvent them. And that's what we're doing here with Music Rebels Rising. We're not lowering the bar. We're raising the right questions. Not, am I doing this correctly, but am I able to say how I feel, or say what I mean, or express through what I am playing, no matter what it is? Am I able to connect to my body in a way that feels healing and amazing and fun and smart? These questions change your entire relationship, not just with your violin, but with practicing, with getting together, with sharing. So if you want to apply this today, before you do anything, first ask yourself, what do I want to say? Maybe you want to say something that you feel. Maybe you want to say something that is a clear, beautiful, projecting note with great tone. What do you want to say? Then start with one note. An open D string, a third finger with a little bit of vibrato, a shifted note on the G string. Pick a note to start with. Maybe it's the first note of a piece you'd really like to work on, or a melody that you're learning. Notice the difference between playing correctly and playing with intention, playing with awareness of how it feels in your fingers, in your arms, your shoulders, your head, your neck, as you are playing. When you lead with communication, with what you want to say, the technique stops being a wall and it starts becoming an access point, a tool for you to be able to express, not a box you have to fit in and never live up to. The violin stops being something you're trying to conquer and battle with, and starts being something that speaks your voice. And that's not a beginner insight, and that's not necessarily for young people, but it is for adults, and it is for what the masters have figured out, and it is why we stick with it. I cannot wait to see you try this. Let me know how it goes. And remember, your violin is your heart, your expression, and your music. And if this is hitting home for you and you want to be around other committed adults that are unlocking the violin, come find our free group in the link. I can't wait to see you there. If you're over 30, playing the violin, tired of battling tone, having zero confidence, and going it alone with lessons, YouTube tutorials, and books that never quite get you there, Music Rebels is opening a new cohort specifically for adults just like you, dedicated to transforming sound, connection, and expression on the violin. You won't find our unique system anywhere else. Registration is limited so we can serve you at the highest level with proven results, real support, and the best time you've had with your instrument yet.